The quest to explain the Colorado mass shootings, more psychologists are starting to look at the roots of mental illness, particularly in those who are young. Elizabeth Bernstein, she writes our Bonds relationship column, and she has also been reporting on some of these issues for many years. Elizabeth, you've been exploring this. Now, let's just say up front, though, what we know and don't know about James Holmes, who is suspected of killing 12 people, wounding 58 others in Aurora, Colorado in the Batman shooting. We were looking at him in court earlier this week. We know very little. In fact, we know that we don't know that there's anything suspicious about yet, whether tests have been made about whether he is suffering from mental illness. The one thing we do know is that he mailed a notebook with drawings of a massacre to a University of Colorado psychiatrist. That's according to law enforcement officials. Now, in terms of the reporting you've been doing, what do we know about the onset of mental illness with young people?
Well, you're right. We don't know much about what made James Holmes do what he did, about his mental illness, if at all he has one, or his background. We do know this morning that his jailers are saying he's claiming amnesia. He doesn't know why he's in jail. But why do people do this? Well, the onset of mental illness, he's actually in the age range for it. It's in males, it's 15 to 25 is the peak age. In females, it goes a little later, 15 to 30. So we know that he's in that range, and people are looking very carefully, obviously, at it.
What are some of the warning signs? I mean, I think that's what people always say, you know, how could we have known? You hear very little of that, you know, with James Holmes so far, but maybe that's yet to come. But just in general, what should people look out for?
People want to know what makes a young person go off the rails, and is it different than a moody teen? How do you tell the difference? So if you are worried about someone, what you want to look for is a lot of change in behavior. You want to look if they're withdrawing from friends, from academics, from work, from anything they like, any hobby or sports interest they have, if their appearance is becoming disheveled, if they're certainly if their thinking is becoming dysfunctional, if they're not quite coherent anymore. You want to look at all of that, and those are huge warning signs. Their sleep patterns, their eat patterns. If someone's really changing, you really want to take a look at it.
Now, Elizabeth, you've been reporting on mental health for a long time for us and talked to a lot of psychologists, psychiatrists. There are obviously serious classified mental illnesses: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, manic depressive disorder. Not all of these, though, cause people to do the kinds of horrific things that James Holmes did. And I wonder if the psychologists you talk to have ever said that evil itself is a psychological disorder.
You know, I haven't heard that. That's a really interesting question. But they certainly do say, the psychiatrists and psychologists say one thing: not all mentally ill people are violent. In fact, the vast majority of them are not. And also, not all of this incomprehensible violence is perpetrated by somebody who has a mental illness. So there is a separate from mental illness and all the ones you mentioned, there's a profile of a loner who is not out of touch with reality, but who actually is just angry, anarchic, and wants revenge. And that is different than a mental illness. And they're looking at that. They always look at both of those in these cases. And for example, in Columbine, with two shooters, one was mentally ill, very, very depressed. One was a sociopath and not. So though he had some mental illness, but they really believed in the end he did this sort of out of a rage.
All right. Well, everybody, of course, in the hunt for answers for this, they may or may not never come. As you said, I believe you said James Holmes is now claiming amnesia. Is that correct?
Yeah, he is.
All right, Elizabeth Bernstein, we'll keep coming to you for explanations on this. This terrible tragedy. Doesn't even do the words for it. Thank you for being with us.